And welcome to our 7th CalSHRM Insights webcast. I'm your host, Erin Lunn. The CalSHRM Insights is a series of webcasts brought to you by the California State Council of Human Resource Managers of SHRM. They're designed to provide you with the most up-to-date information on California HR topics while giving you the opportunity to earn educational credits. Today's webcast will be recorded and available for viewing on CalSHRMAwards.com. Throughout the webcast, we welcome you to tweet in your questions. You can use the hashtag CalSHRM Insights. We'll put it up on the screen there. And you can text us questions, 916-900-2795. Our speaker will be answering questions throughout this segment. With us, as usual, we have Susan Cisco. She's the HR Director of JTS Construction and JTS Modular, and the past president of the Kern County SHRM. She'll be helping us out today with our question and answer sessions, as well as presenting updates on CalSHRM and filling us in on the upcoming legislative conference. Hi, Susan. Good to have you back.
Thanks, Erin.
And joining Susan and I today is our featured speaker, Mr. Larry Pickett. Larry is the president of a consulting firm that for 19 years has served the public outreach requirements of such organizations as Shell, Hall Ambulance, Golden Empire Transit, the California High Speed Rail, Kern Schools Federal Credit Union, and Holmes Western Oil Production. He earned his master's degree in behavioral science from Cal State University and a bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism from the University of Washington. He's been a professor and an instructor for advanced human resources management, strategic management and business policy, organizational behavior, critical thinking, which I'm going to need after reading all this off, interpersonal communications, ethics, public speaking, and teamwork at California State University and the universities of both Laverne and Phoenix. We welcome you today, Larry, and tell us a little bit about what you'll be presenting to our listeners today.
The topic is risk management, and whether you're a small or mid-sized company or a large company or a government agency, a nonprofit, risk is a part of your life. And so depending on the seriousness of a situation and the potential impacts, it could have a major impact on people who have an interest in your organization. And a risk situation can be very serious and dramatic, and such as an aviation crash or refinery fires, which I've been through some of those. But for most people, it could experience, depending on their preparation, are some of the situations that we have on the board, talking about possible social media attacks, unhappy customers, litigation, natural disasters, security and technology issues, and more. Now, handling risk, if they do happen, falls under the umbrella of risk management. And today we'll be talking about the risk management process, which includes 4 elements: anticipation, participation, preparation, implementation, and evaluation if something does occur. And so that's what we'll be focusing on.
Great. So we just want to remind you to get your questions ready and tweet them in or text them to us. And let's get started with our first part of risk management.
In terms of anticipation, this is really the what-if stage, if something could happen. And so the risk situations that could happen have to be looked at by key staff, both internally as well as externally. And what you need to do is to try to identify the possible situations, such as those that we had up earlier, and to look at not only the possibility but the probability of something like that happening, and to prioritize what are the ones that are most relevant to your particular organization. And with this step, you can look at the internal and external sources of possible risks that can lead to a problem, which can lead to a triggering event that you would have to deal with. So with that anticipation, you know that something may happen, someone or something is to blame, and someone will find out. So the strategies under anticipation involve 3 recommended strategies that I have. One is generic. And again, it relates back to some of the situations that we had up before that any organization that I mentioned could encounter. And some of these you may have less control over, like natural disasters and security breaches or accidents. and some you may have more control over, such as customer and service issues, litigation, and and there are also the potential threats of scrutiny by media or government officials. The second strategy would be your industry that you may be in, whether it's transportation, energy, banking, whatever it may be, that you can look at how others in that your particular industry have crises that they may have had and how they handled them or mishandled them. And to learn from that. And then the third strategy is looking at your own organization. If you've had a crisis situation in the past and how well that you handle that and or again mishandled that. And what you're trying to do with this process, as you feel that you've pinpointed these kind of situations, is to eliminate potential risks, or at least mitigate what might happen. And also you can gain, from a positive standpoint, you may, as you're going through this process, to realize that you are actually on top of a situation, that you may be doing things that could prevent it from actually happening. And so the key element at the beginning of the process is to anticipate, and sometimes it's very logical. In the case, like for example, with an airline, a commercial jet crash is at the top of their list. And you can go through your own industry and go through that particular process and those three strategic steps so that you feel that you've got a pretty good handle on what you might face.
Yeah, being on top of it would be a good thing.
That's a goal, a worthy goal, yes.
Interesting.
Just identifying, each risk that a company may have, I think puts them in a good spot. Yeah.
And again, you'll feel through that process too, you'll get a feel for how serious the situation may be as it impacts, and the kinds of impact it would have on people that are really important to your organization, whether it's customers, constituents, employees and their families, community folks, a whole array of people that are either impacted or have an interest in what might happen.
And I'm sure this would depend on the size of your business, but who would you typically find doing this kind of pre-work, this identifying, this pre-stage of, like, we're talking to a lot of human resource managers. What role do you see them playing in this particular?
Well, HR would be one of the key functions within an organization. However, as I mentioned earlier, you may have a company with 5 people, or you may have an organization with 100 people. But the basic framework for risk management is the same. Now, you may be sharing responsibility, but now HR itself, I found in situations that I've been in planning and drills with organizations, plays a role certainly with the employees, keeping records on the employees. And if you were to get into fatality or injury situations, HR would play a role. They've had a significant role in communicating with employees about working with other functions to keep employees and their families informed about something that's happening. And so the employee connection that HR would have is critical in a situation like this.
Right, especially keeping track of what employees are on the premises, clocked in, and just knowing who's there and who's not is an HR function.
Very much so.
So, and safety reporting.
And overall here in California, how would you say overall how do you feel companies, is this high on their list of items they're thinking about, or do you think companies could maybe spend a little more time thinking about this?
Well, that's a very good question. In talking with some companies, they'll say, well, we've never had a risk situation or a crisis situation.
It's never happened to me.
We have other things we need to focus on. But what I find is if you look at the concern about maybe spending money, time, and people's initiatives to prepare for something that could happen is important. Now, if they don't plan or anticipate something that could happen, and it does happen, you could be having people running off in 12 different directions. What do we do? What do we do? Now, as far as your question goes, with so much that's in the news, so much that's happening in California on a variety of different levels, at least anticipating possibilities that could happen to your organization is important. So we do find among particularly energy companies, finance organizations, and others that I've dealt with, that they do have some a framework for some kind of response, and that's what risk management is just to provide them with that framework for response. So I think more people are realizing the value, because risk management should be a part of your, should be a functional part of your organizational structure and support your mission and value. So if they believe that it does that, then they'll probably give it more attention.
Yeah,
right.
I can see that.
Companies have a duty to protect their employees. And there are quite a few OSHA regulations that, you know, tell companies, hey, you know, you have to have a certain plan in place, you know, emergency procedures and that kind of thing. But these general programs that we apply to our business, they are not specifically for the different types of risks that can happen. And I think it's really important for business owners and for HR practitioners to really take this information that we're getting today and come up with a plan specific to these possible risks.
Yeah. And that'll be our next step, yeah? Implementation, yeah. Well, I think it's about time to take a first little quick break. I'm going to hand it over to Susan, and she's just going to bring you up to date on the upcoming CalSHRM Legislative and HR Conference coming up in April.
Yes, it is a huge event, and this year it's being held at the Sheraton Grand Hotel. And this is happening Wednesday, April 25th through the 27th. It's called California State Legislative and HR Conference. It's a heck of a lot more than that. If you want to feel empowered, if you want to make a difference in what goes on with HR legislation, and learn a great deal more, you'll definitely want to attend this conference. Well, there's so many details we can share throughout the webcast.
Yeah. The important thing is to mark your calendar.
Mark your calendar.
And quickly, because it's already, I mean, it's about halfway, I think they're about halfway there already.
Yeah, April 25th through 27th. Their deadline to register for early bird pricing is April 2nd. So
and it's a big, significant savings.
Definitely.
Well, great. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back, and we'll take some questions.
Welcome to CalSHRM Awards. Effective service award programs that merge technology with a human touch. Turnkey, custom-designed service award programs reflecting your company culture. CalSHRM Awards, motivating your greatest asset. The smart way. Recognition, powered by social media. Improving your process. Visit us at calshirmawards.com, your most powerful resource for employee recognition.
Are memos, documents, and spreadsheets slowing your business down? How about incompatible software packages? Do you live in a world of stacks of paper, illegible forms, compliance nightmares? FormForce believes in transforming your business into a modern organization, giving you control and confidence of securing your data, maintaining industry compliance to the point where you can verify and validate your actions and performance. Sustainable practices that contribute to a green, paperless world with big data at your fingertips. Empowering your profitability by removing old-world cost centers. What is FormForce? We are a web and mobile, database-driven platform focused on safety, security, and compliance. Included is a robust form builder for customizing all your business processes and forms, a policy and procedure management console to digitally deliver your most important documents, training management and compliance tracker to keep up-to-date records for all your staff with prompts and reminders. Our built-in messaging platform delivers real-time notifications to audit and approve work and issue company-wide or site-specific alerts. FormForce. Engage your employees, captivate your clients, and optimize your organization.
Welcome back, everyone. We're back with Larry Pickett and Susan Sesko. Before the break, we were talking about anticipating situations that could potentially have negative impacts on your operations, your marketing, reputation, and maybe your bottom line. And now we've got a few questions. Susan?
Well, Larry, the first question, would you say that most risk situations are sudden or smoldering over time?
Well, it depends on the organization, how it's structured, its operations, activity, and that type of thing. But it can actually be both. As far as most of that I've had the opportunity to deal with have been sudden, where you have some kind of an explosion or a fire, things of that nature. But then on the smoldering side, you could have a situation in the community. You might be wanting to build a facility that might be upsetting residents, and that may take more time. So it's that the triggering event activity that can generate a sudden. But hopefully, as you're going through the anticipation process, the what if, that you'll be aware of both.
Right.
Well, particularly the smoldering one, but things that have been smoldering for a while can erupt into a sudden risk that you would have to deal with under the umbrella of your plan.
Got it. On the list of generic situations, what have been the most common ones that we should pay special attention to?
Well, I think you should obviously pay attention to any community concerns that your local area may have about your operation, its facilities, and of that nature. Litigation is always in the horizon. Things that might be bothering a variety of constituents, and certainly employee issues. And of course, that depends a lot on how you're treating your employees on a day-to-day basis, whether they're unhappy about things. I have found with some financial institutions that changing their procedures, a lot of times people say, well, I like banking the old way. I don't want to deal with those new, I had one situation where I had folks standing in front of a bank with their media with the microphones to interview customers who were upset about a change in procedures. So it can be, as far as the frequency, you deal with, you go through your own list and determine what could most affect you as an organization, and then make that kind of a judgment.
Super. Great questions. So remember our hashtag at CalSHRM Insights and keep tweeting us questions, or you may text them to 916-900-2795. And I guess we're ready to move on to preparation.
Well, now that we've gone through the what if stage, and if your organization feels that you're on top of what could happen, then the next step is to get into developing response plans. Now, you can either build a response plan or enhance one that you may already have in place, and so it could involve both. But the two basic elements in any kind of a plan involve operational response and communications response working in parallel. So both are important. You've got to deal with a situation, but you also have to be an effective communicator to people that have an interest in what's going on. And so from an operational side, you're trying to get a situation under control to mitigate its impacts and to help with business continuity. And that's ultimately what you're trying to do. And with business continuity, you have as I mentioned, you're having key response people with you through the whole process, but you also have people in the organization that keep the operation going, whatever it may be. And that's one thing I recommend as far as the manager of an operation or the CEO, who should be probably not part of that response team, but should be kept informed. And because that person, that man or woman, and others working with him or her they have to keep things going, even though a crisis may be underway. Communications involves being transparent, having access to information, and certainly getting the facts out. Mm-hmm. Now, again, a variety in terms of preparation of staff responsibilities. We've mentioned briefly HR, mm-hmm. but you could get into marketing, you get into legal, mm-hmm. you get into communications, finance, a whole variety of functions that could be part of a response team. And right. in doing that, working with them on, as we've done with HR, a checklist of things that they should pay attention to if something does occur. Mm-hmm. And so we're talking about key areas of focus, operations and communications, talking about key staff and functions within the organization, small or large. Mm-hmm. And then there are your key stakeholders that you should be concerned about in terms of their interests, and we've already mentioned customers, constituents, families, government officials, the news media, business partners. There's a wide range of possible key stakeholders. And then your messages, key messages that are implemented internally or externally. Now, one thing about the key message, pre-approved key messages that's important is that something happens. We talked about sudden risk situations. Mm-hmm. In your response plan, and having pinpointed some of the key possibilities that you have, is to put together some initial key messages that could be used mm-hmm. at the initial stage, because what you want to do with those key messages, in addition to having some information to put out quickly, you also want to frame the perception of a situation and that you are on top of it, and we'll get into that more mm-hmm. in implementation. Mm-hmm. But if you have this in place in your plan, then you can implement those very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. From an operational standpoint, it's getting your not only the key messages, but your key contact tools. How do we get that information out? Right. And we're talking about social media, we're talking about things as basically as your website, telephone, letters, emails, a whole variety of tools right. that you can use to get that information out initially. And in a plan that, when working with folks and putting these things together, like I say, building or enhancing, it goes through putting this whole plan together with a breakdown of these different functions, which would be available to employees electronically, unless you want to have a hard copy, but have them in both. So everybody knows who's supposed to do what right. in that plan. Mm-hmm. And so, and then within that plan, you also should have such things as media logs, crisis assessment log materials that you can keep track of a situation, because initially you don't have all the facts, obviously, and right. so you're building this assessment update on a regular basis for the stakeholders to provide them with the information that they want. Certainly, if it's of news media interest, you'll want to have the basics together for them. Now, an important part of the preparation is testing. You can spend a lot of time mm-hmm. putting a plan together, and but you want to make sure it's working, it's going to right. work. And there are various approaches to that. You can have a simple tabletop exercise, like folks sitting around a table like mm-hmm. this. You lay out some scenarios, and various functions will be around the table who know what their checklist includes. You throw out the situation and see how everybody responds in terms of how they dealt with it. Another approach would be drills. I'm working with a company right at the moment. We have quarterly drills on mm-hmm. different scenarios that they may face, and we put their operations, communications people together to see how they would deal with that. Mm-hmm. And then of course there's the possibility of a full-blown exercise, company-wide. And one time I was doing some work with Southern California Gas Company, and a big company as far as California goes, and it was dealt with one of the El Niños. Oh. And what would, if that happened, how would that affect that company operations? We had bridges falling and
Wow.
gas pipelines exploding. And
But not actually.
No.
Okay, good.
An exercise.
That'd be a very expensive exercise.
But it could happen in real life. But this was a test. But it affected everybody in the organization, and it was a surprise.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that
You could see
how
prepared.
Exactly. And so we say, okay, this is what's been happening, and get into action.
Wow.
And it went pretty well. And these drills can be extremely beneficial because they get your people focused on that possibility. Another thing that, as far as your planning and testing goes, is working with local police, fire, highway patrol, and others who could be involved in a situation. And it can be very, very helpful, particularly in evacuation situations or getting the information out. So essentially it's a framework for action, and laying out what you could face and how you would respond, who responds, and to make sure that you do respond effectively.
Yeah, I think the drill portion is really important, because you could have a written plan and train on it and have like an annual, review kind of thing. But when you put people, in those actions or positions to act accordingly, you can find a lot of kinks in the plan, and it'd be a good way to work those out.
Well, yeah, very definitely, because with plans, you try to plan as effectively as you can, but again, as you're saying, you don't necessarily cover everything that you should.
Right.
And organizations are changing all the time, so your plan has to change, as well as the drills that you've laid out. But you have to keep up on what's happening in the organization so that your risk management plans complement the organizational structure.
Definitely.
Yeah, when you look at the entities that their primary duties are responding, they have drills all the time. I mean, that's
right.
And you depend on them to do their job, perfectly when that sudden event does occur. But these organizations, that's not their primary function. So, but you can see the benefit of it when you see emergency responders responding so effectively. You can see the benefits of drilling. So, very interesting. Yeah.
Just a part of the planning is, as you're alluding to, bringing in the seriousness of a potential situation, one that you could handle completely locally by employees, or you might bring more employees in to deal with it, or calling on what might be called outside responders, depending on the nature of the situation, and in your preparation phase to work with those people as well, so that they know your organization and they know they can be called in addition to complement what you're doing with internally.
Right. So reach out. There's resources out there. Very interesting. Well, before we go into our next break, we're going to head back to Susan and get over. She's going to fill you in on a little bit more. We'll be going on in late April.
Yeah, the California State Legislative and HR Conference is awesome. There are a lot of people in California that have attended this conference. There's great reviews. The pre-conference workshop where Michael Galt will help everyone who plans to walk to the Capitol. He preps them in what to expect and how the process and the procedures go. And the classes that are offered in this conference are just so much fun. I'm just going to read off a couple of titles that I think would be fun to attend. Service Animals, Coming to a Cubicle Near You, and Your Robot Called and He Wants a Lunch Break, Technology Trends and Challenges Affecting HR. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Again, registration deadline is April 2nd. And the pricing we'll go over in a little bit, but it's in Sacramento, the 25th through the 27th of April.
Great. Looking forward to it. And now it's time for a quick break and another word from our sponsors.
Welcome to CalSHRM Awards. Effective service award programs that merge technology with a human touch. Turnkey custom-designed service award programs reflecting your company culture. CalSHRM Awards, motivating your greatest asset. The smart way. Recognition powered by social media. Improving your process. Visit us at CalSHRMAwards.com, your most powerful resource for employee recognition. It's a new day for employee wellness. CalSHRM Awards is proud to introduce a new line of wellness programs. Our wellness programs offer a dynamic online platform that helps you bring healthy living initiatives to your employees through inspiring and instructive video programs that offer expert yoga, fitness, nutrition, and meditation video content. CalSHRM Awards wellness programs empower your employees to live a healthier lifestyle, and a healthier workforce is proven to increase overall productivity and reduce costly absenteeism. Under the trusted guidance of expert instructors, our videos make the journey to wellness engaging, fun, and easy. Accessible anywhere, anytime, our video content can be personalized to fit any fitness level and busy schedule. Our portal is incredibly affordable and can be customized with your company's messaging, making it unique to you. CalSHRM Awards, your most powerful resource for employee recognition.
Hey everyone, we're back with Larry Pickett and Susan Sesko. Before our break, we were talking about actually developing a response plan, and we've got a few questions. Susan, off to you.
Thank you. Larry, just a quick statement. I think that it's important for everyone to know that you don't have to have an elaborate plan. You just have to have a plan. Can you tell us, with limited staff and resources, how can small to mid-sized companies use risk management?
Well, the risk management framework is applicable to any size organization. If you're talking about anticipating the kinds of possible risks that could affect you, putting together some kind of a response initiative, and implementing it, as we'll get into, if necessary. You could, as I mentioned at the beginning, that small and mid-sized companies, there may not be this a large staff breakout of responsibilities. Say a smaller organization, you may have one person covering several different functions, which would still have to be covered in terms of a crisis or risk situation. So the basics remain. That are really, no matter what size organization that you have, as long as you respond in the way that you need to get it under control and to communicate with people who have an interest in that situation.
Thank you. Let's see here. Sorry. So what characteristics do you think a spokesperson should have? Internal, external?
In the preparation phase, you'll probably, again, whatever size organization, designating someone to work with your key stakeholders, and particularly the news media. So that person, he or she should, number one, know the organization well, and number two, to understand, in the case of the news media, how the news media operate, so that they have a comfort level if someone was putting a microphone in their face, that they don't,
freeze,
and realize that that the news media can, number one, get information out, and in some cases be very, very helpful in a crisis situation. In terms of, for example, if you had to have an evacuation situation, the media can help get the information out to deal with what might be required there. So most of the I know a lot of people have a concern about aggressiveness on the part of the news media, but most of the media that I've had the opportunity to work with are just basically doing a job.
Right.
Something has happened, and they want to get the information for a legitimate story. Realizing that spokesperson should understand that and help to meet their, help them do their job, and in many ways the media will help them do theirs.
Excellent. Okay, so essentially, just know the company very well.
Right.
Have, a finger on the pulse of what is going on, and know how to talk to the media. That is really important. Not a lot of people know how to do that.
Well, thanks for those questions. And just a reminder, we're at CalSHRM Insights, or give us a text, 916-900-2795. So we're back to Larry, and now we're going to talk about implementing our fantastic response plan.
Yes, indeed. Having gone through the anticipation stage and the preparation stage, the next step is obviously something has happened. And you've been laying out the kinds of situations that you could face. And so two recommendations that I frequently made. Number one, be flexible in terms of what may have happened. And number two, realize that no crisis occurs according to plan.
Right.
However, if you do have a basic risk management plan in place, you'll have the basic mechanism there to respond to whatever the situation is. And again, you're responding, as we had under talking about preparation, the response revolves around operations and communications. First thing to do is to get it under control, and to either under control or mitigate the situation. A big part of the implementation phase, in addition to using your key people again to respond operationally, is to, you're probably going to elevate your communications program at this point, because there are going to be, in addition to the news media we've talked about, people are going to have an interest in what's going on and how it's affecting them. And the information during this implementation stage is to have the information fast, available, accurate, and of course coordinated with internally and even externally. And so we've talked about the spokesperson who has a major role in that communications process. And what that person, two things a person in that role can work at is, number one, to lay out the fact that the situation is under control, or that they're getting it under control, and depending on what's going on, and also to express concern about the impact on anybody, the community, employees, the public, whatever it may be. Because I've seen too many situations where people have, they haven't done that well. And so they think there was an oil company up there years ago in Alaska with an oil spill, and they were responding very, very well operationally, but they kept saying no comment, which, when you hear the words no comment, people
it
feel
implies
there's
guilt.
Well, they feel there's something to hide.
Yes.
And so in addition to getting it under control and expressing concern, is to indicate that you're going to be cooperating with anybody that investigates the situation. I was involved with an aviation crash a few years ago in Los Angeles, and the National Transportation Safety Board was obviously involved with that one, and they were right on their go teams were right on the spot very, very quickly. And so we, of course, will be working with them to find out what actually happened in that case. And of course, they take their process very, very seriously and extensively to determine what happened and how to try to keep it from happening again. And in that process, we're cooperating with getting that done. The news media, in terms at this point with communications, they're asking a lot of the questions that impacted folks are probably asking. What happened? When did it happen? Who's affected? And of course, the media goes probably, as they do, to they want more detail than you may have available
yeah.
at that point. How did it, what happened? How did it happen? And so, and responding to the media at that point, number one, you don't speculate about the cause because you're probably still trying to find out what it is. And a responsibility for it, that's also part of the investigation, any costs that are involved. And as I mentioned, never say no comment because it's, people think they get suspicious.
Right.
And then don't say off the record because...
Everything's on the record.
Exactly. If you don't want it said, or
don't
don't
say
want
it
it on the record, don't say it.
Yeah,
And
it'll be
because
on
a lot of
YouTube
times people
eventually.
will, they'll say a reporter, they may not remember what was on or off the record. So you have to be aware of that. And also, I strongly recommend, as far as having worked a lot with the media, don't avoid meeting with the news media because, as I said, they're doing their job. And if you set up a barrier to getting information out through them when they can be a help, then that's a bad move as well.
Another bad move would be for the news media to get the information where the company doesn't want them to get the information, coming from a secondary source that may not have all the facts.
Well, that's yes, and in putting the earlier I'm talking about putting the framing the perspective on the crisis, because one of the deficiencies of some sources of information for the media are eyewitnesses, and the credibility of eyewitnesses and the accuracy of a lot of what they're saying is not there. That aviation crash I mentioned, it was just coming in for a routine landing, and without getting into a lot of detail on that, but there were some folks who were near the airport saying, "Oh, that plane was on fire." And think like, no, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was a routine landing, and unfortunately, it did happen. Part of this whole communications factor is the need to monitor what's being said, not only just by the news media, but other people who have an interest, and using social media and other sources for that. The media coverage will help you do a whole variety of things to know how it's being perceived, so you can deal with it from a communication standpoint. And also sometimes with misinformation is out there, and you're monitoring it, your spokesperson or other tools to get that information out very quickly to correct. And then just one more quick thing with these key folks, and part of your implementation is to, whether it's your constituents, customers, business partners, investors, stockholders, whoever it may be, important, having designated folks under the plan who would respond and how, and to get them into action so that everybody who has an interest in it knows as best as we can provide at that point what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, really interesting.
Very, very important.
There's a lot to it. Well, before we take our very last break of the afternoon, back to Susan. She's got a little bit more information for us.
Yes, I do. I wanted to, for the California State Legislative and HR Conference, I wanted to go over the pricing. It is really good. For 3 days, the regular pricing is $650, and if you register by April 2nd, it's only $570 for SHRM members. So you'll want to hurry up and go to the CalSHRM 2018 California State Legislative and HR Conference website and get registered as soon as possible. I know they were pretty packed last year, and it's going to be even larger this year. So you'll want to get in as soon as possible at the early bird pricing.
Yeah, exactly. That first day, I think, is really the special day where you get a chance to interact with your legislators. It's just not something you can do on your own or get the opportunity, and CalSHRM provides this opportunity. And
it's incredible.
It is a chance to really get your voice heard.
Yep.
So we have one last commercial break, and when we come back, we'll take a few more questions and finish up with our presentation.
Welcome to CalSHRM Awards. Effective service award programs that merge technology with a human touch. Turnkey, custom-designed service award programs reflecting your company culture. CalSHRM Awards, motivating your greatest asset. The Smart Way. Recognition, powered by social media. Improving your process. Visit us at CalSHRMAwards.com, your most powerful resource for employee recognition.
Are memos, documents, and spreadsheets slowing your business down? How about incompatible software packages? Do you live in a world of stacks of paper, illegible forms, compliance nightmares? FormForce believes in transforming your business into a modern organization, giving you control and confidence of securing your data, maintaining industry compliance to the point where you can verify and validate your actions and performance. Sustainable practices that contribute to a green, paperless world with big data at your fingertips. Empowering your profitability by removing old world cost centers. What is FormForce? We are a web and mobile, database-driven platform focused on safety, security, and compliance. Included is a robust form builder for customizing all your business processes and forms, a policy and procedure management console to digitally deliver your most important documents, training management and compliance tracker to keep up-to-date records for all your staff with prompts and reminders. Our built-in messaging platform delivers real-time notifications to audit and approve work, and issue company-wide or site-specific alerts. FormForce. Engage your employees, captivate your clients, and optimize your organization.
Welcome back. We're here with Larry Pickett and Susan Sesko, and we have a few questions.
Yes, we do. Larry, if you cannot provide certain information, what are alternatives to no comment?
Basically, two things. One, we don't have that information at this particular time because, as I mentioned, the information you want to be transparent as best you can, and you're being transparent according to what information is available. There may also be proprietary information as far as your organization goes, and interestingly enough, the media and others respect that. That you're not hiding anything that could embarrass you or that type of thing. It's just information that is inside the organization that may be related to something else, and so they'll normally respect that. So it's basically, well, as far as the information goes, that you may not, initially you may not have all the information, but to promise the media and others regular updates, and then to give as much information, that fuller information, more comprehensive information that you will have at that time.
Good. Very good. When is it appropriate, and how soon should we release the names of fatalities or injured names in a crisis? Okay,
the key guide on that is not until families have been notified, particularly in my view, in any case, either fatalities or just injuries. Because again, it's a matter of respect and a matter of sensitivity to families, and the news media, for example, obviously that's something that the information they want, or maybe where they're at a hospital or something like that. Sometimes there are some provisions where hospitals will or will not release information, but the key guide is if you had a fatality in the situation, you get the families notified, get them taken care of, and then once they're notified, then you could put the information out.
And what do you have a recommended process for that, or is there a designated person that should handle that, or should that be?
Well, actually, I think that's a good role for HR. Okay. Because HR has the information on the employees. They'll probably have information on how to reach the families for folks that work for them. And so my recommendation would be that function or that responsibility would fall initially under HR. However, other people may be involved. Let's say a person worked in a certain department and working with HR, they may ask the manager or the supervisor to get with the families. Mm-hmm. The important thing is notify them first, and then you can put the information out.
Yeah. Tough questions, but good ones that need to be asked.
Definitely.
So, evaluation now.
Okay.
And it would be evaluation whether you had to put your plan in place, or even if you didn't have occasion to put the plan in place, you might want to go back and reevaluate it, yeah? Mm-hmm.
Well, the basic focus of evaluation is, as far as our discussion today, something has happened.
Okay.
And you've dealt with it from an implementation standpoint. So hopefully, the dust is settled. You got it basically under control. And as I mentioned, you got key people involved at every step in the process, and including this one, where you sit down and say, okay, how'd we do? What went well? What did not go so well? Mm-hmm. Were there any problems? And of course, lessons that were learned in terms of how we respond to a situation. And in addition to that, there's opportunities for follow-up with your key stakeholders, and some recommendations on that. You can various tools. You could survey customers, employees, and others as to. We recently had a situation, and how did you feel we responded? Did you get information that you needed on that situation? How did it impact you? Follow up with customers in terms of any impacts on them. If you have, say, a facility and you had neighbors around there, you might want to make some additional efforts to get out and meet with them and see how they were feeling about the whole thing. And of course, your follow up with investigators and a whole variety of people. And and again, then damage control. If it didn't go so well, let's say you didn't handle the media all that well, or
you said no comment.
You kept saying no comment. You might want to get back with those folks and revisit,
get back in good
mend
graces.
some fences and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But and again, it's a big part of it, of course, is, as you were mentioning, look back at how you responded, the plan that you had in place, what went well with the plan or not, and you're really circling back to see if you need to rework everything as far as a plan, responsibilities, checklists, everything that was a part of it. So in summary, in terms of risk management, I would recommend that it be part of your organizational structure and decision making as a focus in case of need. It should be based on the best available information that you have internally and externally. Mm-hmm. There's a human factor. Mm-hmm. A major part of a situation where it doesn't just involve fatalities and injuries, but involves families and sensitivity of communities and neighbors.
The
and
emotional needs.
The emotional needs. Yeah. Again, transparency is critical in terms of getting the information out that people have an interest in. Mm-hmm. And it should be a function that is open to change. Mm-hmm. That will probably be needed, because not everything works perfectly in a situation like this. Right. And finally, your talk early mentioning, Aaron, about do people pay attention to the possibility in California or really anywhere? So probably a final recommendation I make, and never assume that it will never happen.
Yeah. Right. With all of the active shooter incidences, not just at our events and our schools. I mean, there are so many different things that can happen that companies should definitely prepare and be as prepared as possible and know exactly what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and there's a lot of other things that come into play that get it. It's very scary. Yeah. What could actually happen?
Why small to mid-sized companies might just really steer away from the whole arena of risk management or misinterpret the potential of what they might be able to accomplish. But really, with some simple planning and some time, you could put a pretty decent plan in place and at least know in your heart that you put some time into it and some effort and you had the best interests of your employees at heart. You can't plan for everything that's going on in our kooky world right now, right?
And also, employers have to provide employee counseling, after situations like that. It can be devastating.
Well, it's kind of like some of those major responders. I know, well, in that aviation crash I was mentioning, there were psychologists brought in to deal with employee concerns and family concerns. It's a part of that. But for smaller companies, we're not necessarily talking about a lot of money to do this. You have, whether you're 5 people or 100 people, there is going to be some time as far as employees, but not a whole lot of expense. And it's going to would be well worth it.
Well worth it, absolutely.
Well,
Very interesting.
It also helps with team building, morale, right? Having employees know that they're safe, and if something happens, there is a good plan in place. I think that makes everyone feel a little more secure and a little more. It makes work a little more enjoyable.
Well, you make a good point about the employees, because so often when people get into risk management, they seem to be focused on external situations.
Right.
And so what I try to do is to emphasize the importance. And when you look at your stakeholders at any list, the top 2 on that list, in my view, are either your customers or constituents and your employees and their families. And so any risk management plan should give as much attention as possible as you were getting into to employees and what their needs are and how they can get involved. And so it's extremely important from that standpoint.
Definitely.
Great opportunities. Very interesting subject. We often get caught up in the legislation and all the little details and everything that's coming from Sacramento, and sometimes I think just important items like this get overlooked. So we really appreciate you coming and sharing with all of our listeners and all of those that will listen later on the webcast. And I wasn't sure, Susan, did you have some other updates for CalSHRM for us?
Yeah, just in summary, the CalSHRM 2018 Legislative and HR Conference. It's being held the April 25th through the 27th. It's a 3-day conference. It's not just walking to the Capitol and making a difference in what happens in California legislatively, but there are a lot of other workshops, classes, a lot of fun stuff too. So I encourage you to hurry up and register by April 2nd. The early bird pricing ends April 2nd, so you'll definitely want to do that. So I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Thanks, Erin. And
No
Larry.
Yeah, thanks both of you for
Great
being
training.
here. This does conclude our website for today, our webcast for today. If you'd like to contact Larry regarding anything that we discussed today, he can be reached at 661-619-1298 or at his website, larrypickettpr.com. There's his nice little card we brought up for you.
That is a really nice picture.
Yes, it is.
Well, thank you.
For those of you viewing for SHRM or HRCI credits, the certification number is 188Z7Z5, and the HRCI number is 338016. Again, they're right here on the screen, but I'll list them again. 188Z7Z5 and 338 0616. Detailed information on how to claim your credit will be emailed to you immediately following our broadcast. We want to thank Larry and Susan again for joining us in the studio today. And behind the scenes, a big thank you to Charlie McKay of Saba Agency, who directs us, Tom Saba from CalSHRM Awards for producing today's webcast, and our friends here at our little home away from home, TBC Media Studios. Make sure to tune in to our next CalSHRM Insights webcast, where we will continue to provide the latest in California HR info. We'll have a new guest speaker addressing the HR topics most important to you. And of course, Susan will be here with to update us on local chapter and also CalSHRM events. So thanks a lot for joining us. Have a good one.